In Peru, 17 civilians died and 52 others were injured during the police repression on the sixth day of protests against Dina Boluarte's government. The president of Brazil, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, expressed his commitment to strengthen the defense of the country's democratic system in a meeting with governors and leaders of the legislative chamber. And the Mexican president, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, urged his U.S. counterpart, Joe Biden, to stop neglecting Latin America and the Caribbean and to foster a new policy for continental economic and social integration. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada. And now we begin with the news. The latest report from the Peruvian Ombudsman's Office confirmed on Monday that at least 17 people were killed in Juliaca, in the department of Puno, due to the brutal repression by the security forces. According to the office's report, at least 17 people died and 52 were injured after the repression carried out by military and police forces who opened fire against the demonstrators. The Peruvian Health Ministry, through the San Roman Health Network, confirmed that at 9 p.m. local time on Monday, the casualties, including civilians between the ages of 17 and 55, while at least 4 dead remained unidentified. This occurs within the framework of the indefinite strike that began on January the 4th to demand the closing of the Congress, the resignation of Dina Boluarte, early elections, a constituent assembly, and the release of the former president Pedro Castillo. These recent events bring the total number of civilian casualties since the protests started to 46. In addition, a police officer was found dead next to its burned police car on Tuesday morning. The president of Brazil, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, expressed on Monday his commitment to strengthen the defense of the country's democratic system in a meeting with governors and leaders of the legislative chambers. At the meeting, which was also attended by members of the Federal Supreme Court and the Attorney General's office, Lula ratified that while they will not be authoritarian, neither will they be lukewarm with the perpetrators of the invasion of government buildings in Brasilia. In this way, he assured as well as the financiers behind the invaders will be investigated. Lula spoke of the visible damage caused by the vandals in the Three Powers Square and other buildings that were attacked. The Brazilian president also emphasized that there was no vindication nor constructive agenda in those who were invading the government buildings, but that they were merely seeking a coup. On Sunday, the intervener in the public security of the Federal District of Brazil, Ricardo Capelli, said that there will be no impunity for the radical Bolsonaristas who participated in the coup actions on Sunday. In statements to the national media, he reiterated that the vandalist acts will not go unpunished, assuring that the authorities will go to the last consequences with the objective of identifying the guilty and send them all to jail, explained Capelli. So far, the Brazilian authorities arrested 1,500 people. Most of them were in the encampment calling for a military coup, but some 300 participated directly in the invasion of the Congress, the Supreme Court, and the Planalto Palace, the seat of the government. Capelli reiterated that the law will be complied with so that it is clear that no one will attempt against the democratic rule of law in Brazil. On Monday, Brazilian social organizations mobilized to defend democracy and reject fascist and violent actions carried out by Bolsonarista groups. Several municipalities in the country are the scene of demonstrators in which popular and political groups reject the coup attempt while denouncing the violent actions of Bolsonaro's followers as a criminal attempt. The demonstrators demand that all those responsible for the assault on the headquarters of the three federal powers be punished and that there will be no amnesty for those who encouraged the attack. As part of the investigation process, the federal police reported on Monday the arrest of some 300 supporters of the former president, who were taken to the security headquarters. After the violent actions led by far-right sectors in Brasilia, people who advocate democracy came out to express their support towards the government of President Luis Inácio Lula da Silva. Our correspondent, Brian Muir, with the details on the ground.
Hundreds of thousands of people came out in 19 of Brazil's largest cities yesterday to show their support for President Lula and his government against the far-right actors who tried and failed to stage a coup on Sunday.
What happened in Brasilia was absurd. It was a terrorist attack against democracy. If the Brazilian people, those who choose the path of peace and tranquility, and President Lula don't come out to the streets to defend democracy, the people who defend military coup will try to take over the country.
As leaders from around the world expressed their solidarity with Lula, Brazilians expressed outrage against former President Bolsonaro and the terrorists he allegedly incited to attempt to overthrow the government.
The Bolsonaro supporters who are trying to stage a coup are using our flag and our Brazilian football jersey pretending to be patriots. But what they're doing is not democratic, it's destruction.
To leaders from the labor unions and people's social movements such as the MST, it was an important show of force that gave a signal to society that the majority of the Brazilian population supports democracy.
The protests that are taking place across the country are against all the mobilization that took place in Brazil on Sunday that we know was an act of terrorism.
Brian Muir, TeleSUR, Recife.
In Uruguay, the unemployed assured that they will continue their hunger strike in front of the Executive Tower, the headquarters of the presidency in the capital city of Montevideo. The demonstrators are protesting the expiration by the end of 2022 of the Job Opportunity Program, in which the National Executive had offered 10,000 temporary jobs to the unemployed, according to a group of ex-beneficiaries. The protesters also expressed that they were forced to start a strike since they are without work and want an answer from the government. In this sense, they pointed out that there are close to 10,000 people who worked under the Opportunity Program and that now, without it, they are in precarious situations together with their families. Let's take a short break, but first, remember you can follow us on our TikTok account at TeleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news, updates, and more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back. On Tuesday, Colombia's Vice President, Francia Márquez, denounced a new assassination plot against her. The high-ranking official took to Twitter to inform that her security team found a device with more than 7 kilos of explosive material on the road that leads to her family residence in the village of Yolombo in Suárez, Cauca. After this message, Márquez stated that the evidence shows it wasn't a new attempt against her life. However, she assured that she will not stop working until total peace is achieved. The explosives were destroyed in the controlled manner by anti-explosive personnel of the Judicial Investigation Section of the National Police. On Monday, Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador urged his U.S. counterpart, Joe Biden, to stop neglecting Latin America and the Caribbean and to foster a new policy for continental economic and social integration. AMLO said the region has the potential to manufacture most of what it imports from Asia. He also recalled the Alliance for Progress, implemented by U.S. President John F. Kennedy in 1961, which meant an investment of some $10 billion, today's equivalent to $82 billion. over a 10-year period. He said the free trade agreement with the U.S. and Canada has enhanced the importance of manufacturing processes and of regional markets for Mexico. Meanwhile, Biden stressed the importance of strengthening supply chains and of shared security, including the fight against fentanyl smuggling. He also highlighted the need for actions to jointly address irregular immigration. Biden said that over the past 15 years, the U.S. has spent billions of dollars in the hemisphere and that they must continue to support and build democratic institutions. On Tuesday, in the framework of the trilateral summit of the North American leaders, the United States, Mexico, and Canada signed a declaration for racial inclusion and equality. The document was signed by the Mexican Foreign Minister Marcelo Ebrard, the Secretary of State of the United States Anthony Blinken, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Canada Melanie Joly. Said during the speech to the press that the declaration of the North American Alliance for Inclusion and Racial Equality aims to promote social diversity, equity, and inclusion in the three countries. This is our blueprint for diversity, equity, and inclusion in our societies. All people deserve equal opportunities, regardless of religion, gender, or sexual orientation.
This declaration is a historic step in our work to eradicate deep-seated injustice. Diversity is a fact, but inclusion is a choice. How we choose to incorporate the diversity of our communities can mean the difference between a stagnant and thriving country and continent.
In every nation, members of marginalized groups face discrimination. They face barriers that prevent them from participating fully in society. It's a daily reality for people from indigenous communities and communities of African descent, women and girls, LGBTQI+ people, people with disabilities, religious minorities, and others, including in the United States. With this declaration, each of our nations acknowledges the responsibility to work with fierce urgency to knock down these enduring barriers and to try to stamp out the prejudice at their root.
Racism in Mexico sums up social inequality and gender inequality and other inequalities. There has been a great effort to dismantle the culture of racism. It's a culture. It's not an easy topic, but this is a fight that we almost take on every day, to dismantle racism in Mexico.
And precisely on Tuesday, Mexican Foreign Minister Marcelo Ebrard affirmed that the Organization of American States has become a disaster, while valuing the role of CELAC and the inauguration of Lula da Silva in Brazil as two positive aspects for Latin American integration.
We have to get the OAS out of the morass. It is a disaster. I am not talking about Almagro. I'm talking about the institution. Almagro is worse, and the OAS is a disaster. We have to make CELAC become the main instrument of effective cooperation. The arrival of Lula is a huge breath of fresh air for all of Latin America. We can reactivate almost the whole structure, the whole Latin American architecture, which has more or less survived. We can reorganize it, we can relaunch it and make it effective.
Now we move on to other topics. The World Health Organization asked European countries to avoid discriminatory measures against China in the fight against COVID-19 pandemic. The call referred to those nations who imposed COVID-19 testing requirements on Chinese travelers. The international organization urged them to take appropriate measures based on science and facts and to stop political manipulation and discriminatory measures. Australia and Canada required travelers from China to take a COVID-19 test prior to boarding their flights. Other countries, including the United States, India, Japan, and South Korea, have announced tougher COVID-19 measures on travelers from the Asian giant. Meanwhile, the director of the World Health Organization's Europe office, Hans Kluge, said that based on the information received from China, there was no threat, but they will continue to monitor the evolving situation. On Tuesday in France, Emmanuel Macron's government presented its pension reform despite the strong rejection of the measure by civil society. The reform proposes to raise the minimum retirement age from 62 to 64 under the pretext of achieving fiscal balance. The initiative is rejected by the French society. In this sense, a survey published last Friday by the Polling Institute explained that 68% of those interviewed are against raising it to 64 and 79% oppose raising it to 65. Meanwhile, the French cabinet convened a meeting with representatives of the trade unions to discuss the situation. And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu on Tuesday announced the country will build a deeper arsenal of weapons, bolster aviation technology to better evade air defenses, and to improve drone production in 2023. During a media conference, the defense minister stressed that Russia will continue to develop the nuclear triad of ballistic missiles, submarines, and strategic bombers. This is to maintain its combat readiness, since the nuclear shield has been and remains to be the main guarantor of the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the nation. Additionally, he noted that the Army must improve its communications and control system, and that it will therefore start using artificial intelligence technologies.
Will continue to develop the nuclear triad and maintain its combat readiness, since the nuclear shield has been the main guarantee of sovereignty and territorial integrity of our state. We will also increase the combat capabilities of the aerospace forces, both in terms of the operation of fighters and bombers in the area of operation of modern air defense systems, and in terms of improving unmanned aerial vehicles. Our immediate plans include expanding the arsenals of modern strike weapons.
After a collision between two buses on Sunday in Senegal left 39 people killed and 100 injured, President Macky Sall approved on Monday 23 urgent measures to improve road safety. Among them is the creation of a structure responsible for applying the Highway Code, which is the ban on the circulation of public passenger transport vehicles on interurban roads between 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. local time. Also, the ban on the import of used tires, free technical inspection in the car for transport and goods vehicles, and the opening of the technical inspection centers in the region. According to the World Health Organization, nearly 27,000 people are victims of road accidents each year in Senegal, including 11,000 in Dakar. Egyptian authorities said a cargo ship carrying corn that went aground early Monday in the Suez Canal was refloated and traffic through the crucial waterway was restored. Admiral Osama Rabe, head of the Suez Canal Authority, said the ship suffered a sudden technical failure while transiting through the canal, and the authority deployed 4 tugboats to help refloat it. Rabe did not elaborate on the nature of the technical failure. 51 vessels were expected to pass through the waterway in both directions on Monday. Marwa Moher, a media officer with the Canal Authority, said the vessel ran aground 5 a.m. local time and was refloated 5 hours later. On Tuesday, the Arab Peace Group reiterated its call for an end to the siege imposed on Syria by the U.S. and its allies. The Arab Peace Group renewed its call for an end to the unjust Western blockade imposed on the Syrian people for years. This call comes in the framework of the popular Arab and international campaign launched to demand the lifting of the siege imposed on Syria. Also, the group emphasized in a statement the need for Arab communication with Syria, based on recovering this Arab space and helping it to rebuild what has been destroyed by the terrorist war launched against it. And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.